Anyhow, my next, I wish to invite Mr. Franklin Amarasinghe, who was very gracious and kind enough to write the foreword for my book. You know, Franklin doesn't need any introduction. I think you all know him. He was a former head of the Employers Federation, director. He's been an ILO representative. He's on many boards. But one thing always reminds me when I see Franklin, and that's a story from the book of Genesis in the Bible. You see, in the book of Genesis, there is a story where God speaks to Abraham, and Abraham is pleading with God not to destroy Sodom. And Abraham says, God, if I can find 50 righteous men, will you spare Sodom? And God says, yes, if you can find 50 righteous men, I will not destroy Sodom. Abraham, as is with any human being, says, what about 40? What about 30? What about 20? What about 10? God says yes. And sometimes when I see what's happening in Sri Lanka, I wonder whether it's the righteous people like Franklin and some others who are very too few to mention, that God is still smiling with compassion on our country. He's a very righteous person, and it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Ronnie. I don't know whether I deserve such a commendation, but it has always been a pleasure to work with you. And I'm conscious of the fact that when you invited me, you said, speak no more than for 5 minutes. So I'm going to try and limit myself to just a few remarks which I need to present to this great audience. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Someone mentioned that writers nowadays make Rolls Royces out of bullock carts. If someone writes a biography of Ronnie, he will not have to strain to embellish his great qualities, of which you have been hearing about in the last few minutes. He's in a Rolls-Royce class. What is launched today is not an autobiography. The Ronnie I know and have come to respect and admire is much too modest for that. The simplicity with which Ronnie sets out his life's experiences is reminiscent of Charles Handy, who in his book, Beyond Certainty, relates his own experiences in the Far East with candor and with an emphasis of learning from experience, what we now call experiential learning. Ronnie's book is valuable to those plunging into a management world. When we go to school, as Howard Gardner points out, we follow a curriculum which is supposed to have answers to all the problems, and we expect that our teachers and our textbooks have supplied us with all the knowledge needed to see us through our working life. Too late, we find that the empty spaces are so enormous that we are bound to flounder and sink unless we can hang on to some wise and pragmatic mentor. Ronnie's wisdom will help anyone who has to find answers to situations which are totally unexpected in life and in work. Ronnie, through his life, illustrates that spaces of uncertainty which beset us in life can be tackled if we use values as a keystone. They say that the best rested people in the world are accountants' wives. When they cannot sleep, all they need to do is whisper into the ear of the spouse, "Darling, I can't sleep. Can you tell me about your work?" And that's supposed to be better than any sleeping pill. Ronnie, I'm afraid, may not be a success in this regard. And he makes numbers sexy. And his presentations are bound to keep you attentive and excited. I don't know what Ronnie's score in relation to sexy numbers would be. At the law college, we did some accountancy for our exams, and we had this Dickensian character who came to lecture to us. He left us totally confused. And our mantra at the end of our accountancy exam was, "When in doubt, debit." That was all we learned. Being on a board with Ronnie, who was in charge of finances at JKH when I was on the board, was therefore a great relief. Of course, I can't say the same of some of the experiences I had with other accountants in other companies. Ronnie can make numbers dance, but strictly in accordance with convention and clear rules. He never took us down a road of risk. This leads me to comment on Ronnie's talents, which others have already spoken about. But I would need to confirm that if he had wanted a career in entertainment, he would have really excelled. He can, as Mano said, keep a party going till the wee hours of the morning. Congratulations, Ronnie, on a publication which is eminently readable, witty and entertaining, thought-provoking, and a treasure house crammed with golden advice. Anyone in search of material on management accounting, meeting challenges in governance, and keeping your head when all around you have lost theirs, should result in your reading Ronnie's little Bible, and I commend this little Bible to you. To me, the greatest message was how to keep one's integrity when there is pressure to yield to temptation. One final comment. From your book, it is evident that you had a tough journey, but I don't like to think that you have reached your destination. I think you have reached just another station on your journey northward bound. I think there is yet more for you to achieve, and in nurturing professionals and building leaders, you have a great role to play in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for having asked me to share a few minutes at this great event. Thank you very much.